What happens when a billionaire loses everything and finds comfort in the kindness of a diner, waitress and her little girl? This is the story of a shattered man, a grieving mother, and the unexpected love that rebuilt their lives. The rain had been falling since noon, misting the windows of Rosie's diner in a soft, rhythmic pattern that made the whole place feel like it was wrapped inside a quiet lullaby. The dinner rush wouldn't start for another hour, and for now the diner was slow, filled with the calming hum of conversations, clinking cutlery, and an old jazz song humming from the radio behind the counter. Simone Roy, 30 years old, warm-skinned with soft brown eyes and a presence that made strangers feel held, wiped down a table with steady motions. She had been working at Rosie's for nearly 4 years, ever since life forced her to rewrite everything she thought her future would be. The diner wasn't her dream, but it had become her anchor, a place where she could earn enough to keep her and her daughter afloat, and where Eva could wait after school until her shift ended. Speaking of Eva, Mommy, I'm done with my homework, 8-year-old. Eva announced proudly from the little corner booth near the kitchen door. She had her backpack beside her, notebooks strewn everywhere, and a pencil tucked behind her ear like a miniature librarian. Simone smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Good job, baby. Want to color for a bit? Eva nodded and reached into her bag for her crayons. This was their routine: school, then diner, then bedtime at home. It wasn't glamorous, but it was theirs, and Simone cherished it. The bell above the door chimed as a few customers came in, damp from the rain. Simone turned to greet them when she noticed her daughter wasn't coloring. In fact, Eva wasn't even sitting. She was standing now, halfway out of her booth, eyes fixed toward the large window on the other side of the diner. Simone frowned gently. Eva, what is it? Eva didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a small step forward, her face tightening with concern. Mommy, that man, I think he's sad. Simone followed her daughter's gaze. A man sat alone by the window, shoulders hunched, head bowed. From the back, he looked like any other customer who'd come in, seeking shelter from the rain. Navy suit jacket, damp hair, posture drawn inward. But then the man moved, wiping his face roughly with a trembling hand. And Simone realized Eva wasn't mistaken. The man was crying. Before Simone could react, Eva, bold, curious, and sensitive, tiptoed closer. She only made it halfway there before she froze, overwhelmed by the sight of the man's quiet heartbreak. He wasn't just sad. He was completely undone. Mom, Eva whispered hoarsely. He's really crying. Simone gently placed her order pad down and moved closer, resting a hand on Eva's back. Baby, come back to the booth for a second, she murmured softly. Eva nodded and returned to her seat, eyes still wide. Simone's heart tightened. She'd seen people cry in the diner before. Life had a way of pushing people into places where emotion slipped out at unexpected moments. But this man here was grief that looked like it had crushed him. Shoulders shaking, breath uneven, head bowed as if he didn't want the world to see the way it was breaking him. Without thinking too deeply about it, Simone walked to the counter, poured a fresh cup of warm milk, the same thing she used to make for Eva on nights she had bad dreams, and headed toward the window table. She approached quietly, not wanting to startle him. Hi, she said gently. I noticed you looked like you could use something warm. Slowly, the man raised his head. Simone blinked, taken aback. She recognized him. Everyone in New Jersey did, from newspapers, business magazines, tech podcasts, billboards near the highways. Raphael Walton, 35 years old, founder and CEO of Walton Dynamics, one of the most influential tech companies in the region. He was the kind of man the world expected to see on stages, giving speeches about innovation, not slumped over a diner table with tears streaked down his face. Even disheveled, with soaked hair clinging to his forehead and eyes red and swollen, he was unmistakably Raphael. He glanced at the warm mug she'd placed in front of him, then at her, eyes still trembling. I'm sorry, he said hoarsely, voice cracking. I didn't mean to cause a scene. You're not, Simone replied in a steady, soothing tone. You're human, that's all. Eva had followed quietly, hovering behind her mother's leg. Raphael noticed her and straightened a little, embarrassment flickering across his features, but Simone placed a gentle hand on the seat opposite him. May we sit? She asked. Raphael nodded silently. Simone slid into the booth across from him, Eva curling into her side like a small shadow. Simone didn't ask him what was wrong. She simply sat there with him, offering her presence like a soft blanket. Her calmness filled the space around them, allowing him to breathe, to gather himself, or to break. He broke. Raphael bent forward, face in his hands, and sobbed deeply, painfully, the kind of cry that came from a place long ignored and now impossible to hold back. His shoulders shook violently, breath hitching in raw gasps. Simone didn't flinch. She'd seen grief up close, had lived with it, held it, endured it. She understood this sound, this collapse. Ava, who felt emotions like open windows, began to cry too, wiping her cheeks with tiny fists. Raphael heard her soft sniffles and forced himself to look up. When he saw the little girl crying because of him, something in his expression broke and healed at the same time. A faint, wobbling smile rose on his trembling lips. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Eva. "I didn't mean to scare you." Eva sniffled. "You didn't. Mommy says sometimes crying helps." Simone stroked Eva's back, proud of her kindness. Raphael managed to straighten slightly, wiping his face with the napkin Simone offered. After a long pause, he finally found the strength to speak. "I built a company," he began, voice shaky. "Walton Dynamics. I started it when I was 22. Nothing but an idea and a laptop. I worked day and night, sacrificed everything. And it grew. It became something big, something people respected." He swallowed hard, knuckles whitening around the mug. "But a month ago, everything started falling apart," he continued. "Our system began malfunctioning. Files were disappearing. Financial reports skewed. Investors pulled out. The board started panicking. I've spent every hour trying to find answers. And instead, everything collapsed." Simone leaned forward slightly, listening with quiet attentiveness. Raphael exhaled sharply. "I don't know what happened. I don't know how it happened. And I don't know how to fix it. And today, after another crisis meeting, I walked out of the building and just kept walking. I ended up here." He gave a small, humorless laugh that dissolved quickly. "I guess even billionaires hit breaking points." The confession hung between them, heavy, vulnerable, painfully human. Simone let the silence settle for a moment before she spoke. "You've carried a lot alone," she said softly. "No one can stand under that kind of weight without bending." Raphael blinked, as if he hadn't expected understanding, at least not from a stranger. Simone continued, "You said your system malfunctioned. Was it internal or external?" Raphael looked confused. "Internal? External? I honestly don't know. My team tried looking into it, but nothing adds up." Simone nodded slowly. "I studied cybersecurity and digital forensics," she said plainly. Raphael stared. "You what?" "It was my major," she explained. "Before life," she paused briefly. "Before life went another direction." Raphael blinked several times, as though trying to process the collision of worlds. A billionaire tech founder, sitting in a diner, being comforted by a waitress who also happened to have specialized training in exactly the field his company desperately needed. "You studied cybersecurity?" he repeated, disbelief thick in his voice. "Yes," Simone said. "I used to work with system integrity teams. I'm not claiming I know what's happening with your company, but if there's something wrong inside your system, I might be able to help figure out what." Raphael stared at her with an intensity that made his eyes look a little less broken. Then he leaned forward. "Would you come to my office tomorrow?" he asked, almost cautiously. "Just to take a look? Before your shift starts, maybe?" Simone hesitated only long enough to glance at Eva, who looked up at her with a hopeful expression, as if she already knew what her mother would say. Simone nodded. "I can come." Relief washed over Raphael so visibly he sagged back into the booth. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." Simone offered a small smile. "You're welcome." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small card, his company's address engraved on thick paper, and slid it across the table with slightly trembling hands. "I'll be there by 7, he said. "I'll make sure security knows to let you in." Simone accepted the card, tucking it into her apron pocket. For the first time since he arrived, Raphael took a real sip of the warm milk. He closed his eyes briefly, inhaling as if the heat settled something inside him. After another moment, Raphael stood. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his hair damp, his eyes still swollen, but there was a new steadiness in his posture, a little bit of hope. He glanced at Eva. "Thank you for caring," he told her softly. Eva gave him a shy smile. He nodded once more to Simone. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. Simone nodded back. Raphael walked toward the door, paused once as if gathering the courage to step back into the world, then pushed it open. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and as he stepped outside, The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement in soft gold glimmers. Simone watched him go, her hand resting protectively on Ava's small shoulder. For the first time in weeks, Raphael Walton left a place with his chest a little lighter, carrying not solutions, not certainty, but something he'd forgotten he needed, hope. And it had come. From a woman wiping down tables in a diner, and the little girl who cried with him. The sun hadn't fully risen when Simone Roy stepped off the bus in front of the towering glass building marked, with a bold silver sign, Walton Dynamics. She paused at the base of the steps, breath visible in the crisp morning air. The building stretched upward like a monument to ambition, sleek, modern, intimidating. She tugged her jacket tighter around herself, suddenly acutely aware of the difference between her simple clothes and the suits she'd surely encounter inside. But she didn't let herself hesitate long. She'd made a promise, and she'd always been a woman who kept her word. Inside, the lobby was spotless and vast, with marble floors and a chandelier shaped like binary code cascading from the ceiling. She felt the weight of it, the prestige, the money, the world she once trained to be part of, but had never fully stepped into. A security guard approached. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Simone said, clearing her throat. "I'm here to see Mr. Walton. He's expecting me." Before the guard responded, the elevator doors opened, and Raphael Walton himself stepped out, still wearing the emotional exhaustion etched into his posture from the day before, but also something new, determination. "She's with me," Raphael said. The guard immediately nodded and stepped aside. Raphael approached her, offering a small, almost shy smile. "You came. I said I would," Simone replied softly. He looked as though that simple statement meant more than she realized. "Come on," Raphael said gently. "The operations hub is this way." They rode the elevator in silence, the polished metal walls reflecting two people from entirely different worlds. Raphael kept glancing at Simone, as if reminding himself she was real, the lifeline he hadn't known he needed. When they reached the 12th floor, the doors opened to reveal a large room filled with rows of glowing monitors, humming servers, and half-asleep technicians clutching coffee cups. But it was still early, and most of the team wasn't in yet. Only a skeleton crew occupied the space, and they barely glanced at Raphael and Simone before returning to their screens. Raphael led her to a private glass-enclosed section. "This is the main system operations hub," he explained, swiping his badge. "Everything runs through here, or is supposed to." Simone stepped inside and immediately felt at home. The hum of servers, the blinking data lights, the subtle warmth of working machines. It was a world she'd left behind but had never forgotten. Raphael motioned to a terminal. "This station has full access." Simone sat, fingers hovering over the keyboard for a breath, grounding herself. Then she got to work. Raphael stood nearby, hands clasped tightly, like a man waiting for a verdict. Within the first minute, Simone's brows furrowed. Within the second, her eyes sharpened. By the third minute, she inhaled sharply and turned to Raphael. "Your company wasn't hacked from the outside." Raphael blinked. "What?" Simone pointed to the logs on the screen, scrolling through lines of code with ease. "These traces, this intrusion pattern, the timestamps, Raphael, this wasn't done by an external hacker. Someone inside your company accessed your system with authorized credentials and modified core files." Raphael's face drained of color. "Inside," he whispered. "But who?" Simone pulled up deeper logs. A series of entries flashed on the screen, corrupted files, overwritten backups, hidden reroutes. Then a name. Marcus Hale, Raphael's closest friend of 15 years. Simone's voice was soft when she said it. "Everything points to Marcus." Raphael stared at the screen, eyes wide, body rigid. He looked as though someone had carved open his chest. "Marcus?" he said, almost to himself. No, he wouldn't. His voice faltered, breaking under the weight of disbelief. "Marcus has access, but he's my friend. He's been with me since the beginning. We built this company together." Simone had seen heartbreak before, but betrayal carried its own kind of devastation. The way it hollowed a man from the inside, the way it stripped trust from the bones. She turned back to the screen. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "but the logs don't lie." He rerouted data channels. He corrupted the financial reports, and he deleted backup files to hide the trail. Raphael pressed a hand against the glass wall, breathing shakily, shoulders trembling in silent rage and disbelief. Simone rose from her chair slowly. "I know this is hard to hear." He let out a broken laugh, one without humor. "Hard? Simone, this is Marcus's like family. Simone said nothing. Sometimes silence was the kindest response. Raphael scrubbed a hand down his face, then dropped into the nearest chair, looking suddenly exhausted. How did you see this so fast? He asked, voice cracked. Simone sat back down, opening several windows to show him the evidence step by step. This pattern, the code alterations, it's not something an outsider could replicate without knowing your system intimately. No hacker would risk using a traceable employee ID. This wasn't an attack. It was sabotage. Raphael's jaw clenched. Simone brought up the financial rerouting logs. Data flickered across the screen. Encrypted pathways leading to an offshore account. Deleted logs partially recovered. Altered timestamps. Raphael leaned closer, horror growing. He stole from the company? He manipulated your financial system, Simone confirmed. It looks like money has been bleeding out for months. Raphael sat back heavily, eyes glassy like he'd been hit by something physical. Simone's voice remained gentle but steady as she worked, documenting every trace. Her fingers moved confidently, quickly copying logs, isolating corrupted segments, initiating secure backups. Raphael watched in awe. After several minutes, he finally spoke. With skills like yours, why are you working in a diner? Simone paused. She had known the question would come, but it still tugged something deep inside her. She exhaled slowly. Life doesn't always follow the path we expect, she said softly. I was married once, to a wonderful man named Jeremiah. He got sick, a long-term illness. Raphael's expression softened immediately. We spent everything on treatments, Simone continued. Our savings disappeared. I had to quit my job to take care of him, to take care of Eva. By the time he passed, I had been out of my field for years. Employers wanted someone current, someone without gaps. She gave a sad, understanding smile. The diner was the only job that worked with single motherhood, so I took it. Raphael swallowed hard, grief for her woven into his own. You're incredibly strong, he murmured. Simone didn't respond. Strength had never felt like a choice, only a necessity. She returned her attention to the screen. I need to keep going. There's more here. Raphael nodded silently. Over the next hour, Simone worked with precision, uncovering more evidence, financial rerouting, deleted logs, manipulated code, unauthorized nighttime entries, hidden backdoors to the system. Every digital trail led back to one man, Marcus Hale. Raphael watched her, torn between horror at the betrayal and admiration for the calm, capable woman unraveling the truth piece by piece. Simone, he said quietly at one point, I don't know how I'm supposed to face him. Simone turned slightly in her chair. You don't have to decide that today. Right now the priority is restoring what he damaged. He nodded slowly, running a trembling hand through his hair. I trusted him with everything. And how could he do this? Simone wished she had an answer. But betrayal rarely made sense. It simply hurt. She kept working until every compromised area was documented. When she turned off the display, her shoulders slumped, a mixture of exhaustion and accomplishment. It's all here, she told him gently. Tomorrow I can start the restoration process. Raphael looked at her, eyes softening with something more than gratitude. Something deeper, quieter, growing from a place of vulnerability and connection. You've done more in an hour than my entire team has done in a month, he said softly. Simone shook her head. I just saw what they didn't know to look for. No, Raphael said, stepping closer. You saw what others couldn't. And you stayed steady through all of this. Even when I couldn't. Their eyes met. It wasn't romantic yet, not truly, but something undeniable flickered in the quiet space between them. Simone stepped back, gathering her things. I have to get to the diner soon. My shift starts at 9. Raphael nodded, though he didn't look ready for her to leave. Of course, she started toward the door, but he called her name. Simone, she turned. Would you consider helping further? Just until we understand everything? Simone smiled softly, a smile that held a quiet strength. I'll come back tomorrow morning, before my shift, just like today. Relief flooded his features. Thank you, he breathed. Simone nodded once, then stepped out of the glass hub and walked toward the elevators. Raphael watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt in weeks, a sense of stability, a sense of direction, a sense of peace. When the elevator doors closed behind her, he exhaled slowly, placing a palm against the glass wall of the operations hub. Marcus, he whispered, voice filled with grief and anger. But beneath that grief, beneath the betrayal, something else glowed quietly. Hope. Simone had given him clarity, answers, guidance. And without realizing it, something else had begun to grow. A connection he hadn't expected. A bond he didn't fully understand, but one he felt down to his very bones. Tomorrow she would return, and nothing, not his company, not his life, would ever be the same again. The next few days unfolded like a quiet storm, steady, consuming, and deeply transformative. Every morning before her shift at the diner, Simone Roy arrived at Walton Dynamics just after sunrise. Security guards quickly grew used to seeing her, the warm-skinned woman with calm eyes and determined steps who walked through the lobby as though she'd always belonged there. Raphael met her at the elevator each day, punctual and ready, often holding 2 coffees, one black for himself, one sweetened just the way she'd mentioned she liked it. Simone always thanked him with the same soft smile that warmed something in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. In the system operations hub, Simone would slide into the same chair she had used that first morning, open the terminal, and immerse herself in the digital ruins Marcus Hale had tried to bury. She worked with a focus that silenced the entire room. Her fingers moved across the keyboard in fluid, intuitive motions. She'd reassemble corrupted data, fragments as though she were piecing together a shattered vase gently, patiently, with an almost artistic care. She restored logs, retrieved missing records, and traced every stolen dollar through a labyrinth of rerouted transfers. She was quick but never reckless, sharp but never arrogant, and Raphael watched her in awe, not from a place of infatuation, not yet, but from respect, from admiration, from gratitude. She worked with more intelligence and composure than anyone he'd hired, and she did it without recognition, without a paycheck, and without expecting anything in return. Every day he found himself standing near her workstation longer. He'd watch the screens reflect in her eyes, watch how she bit her lip when she concentrated, watch how she whispered little reassurances under her breath to reassure herself she was on the right track. Reconstructing the financial logs now, she would murmur, "Almost got you," she'd say to a stubborn, corrupted file, all while Raphael's world rebuilt itself one line of code at a time. By the 4th morning, Simone had restored nearly all the major system functions. She clicked through screens with growing confidence. "I've tracked the last of the stolen funds," she told Raphael. "It all leads to an offshore account under Marcus's alias." Raphael exhaled shakily, leaning against the glass wall. "I can't believe he did this," he whispered. "Not after everything we built together." Simone paused her work and looked at him gently. "You trusted him. That doesn't make you foolish. It makes him cruel." Raphael swallowed hard. "He wasn't always like this," he said quietly. "In the early years, it was just us. 2 kids trying to build something bigger than ourselves. We slept under desks, survived on takeout, laughed at every nervous investor who told us we wouldn't make it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Then the company grew and we grew apart. I guess I didn't see how much resentment he was carrying." Simone listened, her expression soft and empathetic. She understood resentment. She understood the quiet ways people changed over time. Raphael sighed. "And my public image, people expect me to be confident, controlled, perfect. But that's not who I am most days. Sometimes I feel like I'm performing a version of myself that everyone prefers." Simone turned in her chair, meeting his eyes. "You're allowed to be human, Raphael." The way she said his name did something to him. Grounded him, calmed him. "And you?" he asked softly. "What about you? You've told me pieces, but how did you handle everything you went through?" Simone took a slow breath. She'd grown used to being private, to wearing strength like armor. But Raphael asked not from curiosity, but from genuine care. "Motherhood kept me going," she said quietly. "Ava was so young when her father got sick. I couldn't let her world fall apart, even when I wanted to fall apart myself." She looked down at her hands. "There were days I cried into the kitchen sink so she wouldn't see. Days I felt guilty for being exhausted. Days when every phone call from the hospital made my stomach twist." Raphael's heart tightened. "But we made it through," Simone continued, voice steady but soft. "Even when we had nothing left. Even after Jeremiah passed." She swallowed. "I promised myself Eva would still feel loved no matter what. That's why I took the diner job. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me time with her." Raphael stared at her, humbled, moved, and silently admiring the strength she carried with grace. "Simone, you're extraordinary." She looked at him, then really looked. Something unspoken bloomed between them. Something slow, something tender, something neither of them rushed. By the end of the week, the evidence against Marcus Hale was painfully clear. Simone had recovered financial logs, decrypted hidden messages, reconstructed every sabotage path, and even found files Marcus tried to permanently erase. No motive could justify what he'd done, but his actions were undeniable. Raphael called Marcus to his office. Simone didn't join, but she watched through the glass as two old friends faced the truth. Raphael stood tall, jaw clenched, anger simmering beneath his disappointment. Marcus looked nervous but defiant, his posture defensive. "You were leaving me behind," Marcus snapped at one point, loud enough that Simone faintly heard through the glass. "Everyone praised you. Investors wanted you. The board listened to you and me. I was just the guy next to you. I trusted you," Raphael said, his voice breaking. "You stopped seeing me, Rafe," Marcus spat. "I built this company too, but you took the spotlight, and I was done waiting for you to share it." Raphael shook his head slowly, heartbreak etched across his face. "So you tried to destroy everything we built?" Marcus didn't deny it, didn't apologize. Security arrived. Marcus's expression twisted, part rage, part shame, as he was escorted out of the building in handcuffs. He yelled over his shoulder, "You made this happen. You made me do this." But Raphael didn't respond. He simply stood in the doorway of his office, shoulders slumped, watching the man he once considered a brother disappear down the hall. Simone approached quietly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Raphael didn't look at her immediately. When he did, his eyes were glassy. "I feel like I lost a part of my history," he said. Simone nodded. "Sometimes losing someone is painful, even when keeping them would have destroyed you." Those words sank into him like a bomb. The days that followed were a blur of rebuilding. Thanks to Simone's work, Raphael restored control of the company. He held emergency board meetings, reinstated functional systems, connected with investors, and worked to stabilize everything Marcus had jeopardized. Confidence began returning to the building. Productivity rose, staff morale lifted, and every morning Simone was there leading system restorations, guiding the tech team, ensuring every trace of Marcus's sabotage was removed. One morning, after reviewing a system Simone had revived overnight, Raphael approached her with a quiet intensity. "Simone, you've done more for this company than I can ever repay." "You don't have to repay me," she said. "I wanted to help." He shook his head. "No, you didn't just help. You saved us. You saved me." She opened her mouth to respond, but he held up a hand. "I want to offer you something. Something real." He took a breath. "I want you to become our head of system operations." Simone froze. "That position comes with full benefits," Raphael continued. "Flexible hours, a salary that matches your skills and then some, and we offer on-site daycare if you ever want Eva to stay here after school." Simone's breath caught. It was everything she'd lost. Everything she'd thought she'd never get back. Everything she'd worked for but had been forced to abandon. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, eyes burning. "Say yes," Raphael said softly. "Because you deserve this. Because you've earned this. Because you belong here more than anyone." Tears gathered in her lashes, quiet, grateful, overwhelmed. "Yes," she whispered. The smile Raphael gave her then was the kind that warmed rooms, softened storms, and made her heart flutter in a way she wasn't ready to name. Over the next several weeks, Walton dynamics transformed. Simone excelled in her new role. The team respected her. Employees often peeked over their monitors just to watch her work. She was steady, brilliant, and unassuming, a natural leader. Raphael, meanwhile, found reasons to stop by her office more and more often. Sometimes to ask about system updates, sometimes to bring her coffee, sometimes just to be near her. And outside of work, slowly, gently, their lives began to intertwine. Raphael joined Simone and Eva for dinner one evening, then the next week again. They took walks in a nearby park on Sunday afternoons, Eva holding both of their hands as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Raphael helped Eva with her homework, often sitting cross-legged on the floor, while she explained math problems with dramatic hand gestures. Simone watched them from the doorway sometimes, a soft ache blooming in her chest, a tender mixture of surprise, gratitude, and something warmer, deeper. Raphael began smiling more, laughing more, breathing easier. Simone felt her world expanding too, her heart opening in ways she didn't expect, in ways she hadn't dared imagine since losing Jeremiah. Their bond was growing, not fast, not rushed, but like a sunrise, slow, beautiful, unavoidable, something real. Their lives, once broken in different ways, were slowly being restored. Line by line, day by day, heart by heart, and neither of them realized, not fully, not yet, that what they were rebuilding wasn't just a company, it was a future, together. The seasons turned almost without anyone noticing. What began as a chaotic winter in Raphael Walton's life gradually softened into a calm, blooming spring, then into a warm, stable summer, and through all of it, Simone. Roy stood at the center of his new world like an anchor he had never known he needed. Months had passed since the morning. She walked into Walton Dynamics and rewrote the company's future. Now she was no longer the newcomer people whispered about in the hallways. She was the mind who restored their systems, exposed the truth behind the collapse, and protected the company from ruin. Word spread quickly. Employees admired her brilliance, her steadiness, and the quiet strength she carried everywhere she went. Simone became essential to the company, forming part of its backbone. Meetings didn't begin until she arrived. Strategies weren't finalized until she had evaluated risks. The operations team looked to her not as a temporary savior, but as a leader, a guardian of everything Walton Dynamics built. Raphael saw it all, and each day his gratitude for her deepened. He had changed too, noticeably so. The once restless, easily triggered executive had softened. There was a calmness about him now, a gentleness that those who'd known him for years struggled to describe. He no longer carried stress like armor. He carried gratitude like breath, and whenever anyone asked what sparked the change, his answer was always the same: Simone. Not because she fixed his company, though she did that. Not because she exposed Marcus's betrayal, though that saved him, but because she gave him back something he hadn't realized he'd lost: his sense of purpose, his belief that life could still offer warmth, connection, even love. Their relationship deepened in ways that felt natural, not rushed. It began with small moments, tiny stitches binding their lives closer. Raphael started cooking for Simone and Ava. The first time he invited them over for dinner, Ava spent half the night giggling as Raphael burned the garlic bread twice. Simone teased him, and he took it with good humor, laughing with a brightness she had never seen in him before. After that, dinner nights became a routine. Each week brought a new dish, a new story, a new layer of comfort. Simone supported him through the aftermath of Marcus's betrayal. There were days Raphael still winced when he thought about it. The lies, the manipulation, the years he believed Marcus was family. On those days, Simone sat beside him quietly, letting him talk or sit in silence. She never pushed. She simply made space for him to heal, and that meant more to Raphael than he could ever express. Ava, meanwhile, grew more and more attached to Raphael. She watched him with bright admiration, asking him endless questions about how computers worked, how CEOs made decisions, even what he ate for breakfast as a kid. He answered everything with patience and warmth. There were evenings when Simone would find Ava curled up beside Raphael on the couch, watching nature documentaries or working through math homework. One night, when Ava fell asleep with her head on Raphael's shoulder, Simone saw something she hadn't dared allow herself to imagine. Family. Real steady, safe. It scared her and warmed her all at once. The night Raphael confessed his feelings wasn't dramatic. It wasn't filled with candles or rehearsed declarations. It was quiet, soft, honest. They were in his living room, sorting through some files Simone had brought from the office. Ava had fallen asleep in the guest room after a long day of school and laughter. The rain tapped gently against the windows, filling the silence with a soothing rhythm. Raphael cleared his throat, looking more nervous than she had ever seen him. Simone glanced up from the file. He exhaled, hands clasped. He told her he thought he was falling in love with her. Simone froze, not from shock, but from the weight of emotions she had buried, avoided, locked away. She set the file down slowly. She told him she cared about him so much, but she was scared. He asked what she was scared of, his voice soft. She told him she was afraid of losing what they had built. They were good together. They worked well, they supported each other. Eva adored him. She didn't want to risk all of that. He nodded, stepping closer. He told her he didn't want to risk it either, but he meant what he said. He wasn't looking for a romance that burned bright and faded. He wanted a family. He wanted something real with her, something lasting. Her eyes softened, shimmering with emotion, and for the first time in years, Simone allowed herself to choose hope. They didn't rush into anything after that, but they let their relationship grow, gently, intentionally. There were dates, shared mornings, long conversations and moments where the world felt whole again. For Simone, it meant healing from old wounds. For Raphael, it meant building a life not based on achievement but on connection. A year after the night in the diner, Raphael proposed. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon at the small park near the diner where Simone once worked. The sun filtered through the trees, scattering soft gold across the grass. Eva stood beside Raphael, nearly bouncing with excitement, holding a small velvet box in both hands. She shoved it toward Simone, telling her he had something important to ask. Simone burst into laughter, covering her face. Raphael gently took the box from Eva, dropping to one knee. He addressed Simone, telling her she saved his life in more ways than he could count, that she had become his strength, his peace, and his home. He told her he wanted to spend the rest of his life loving her and building a family with her, asking her to marry him. Tears streamed down Simone's cheeks. She accepted. Eva squealed, launching herself into Simone's arms. Raphael stood and wrapped both of them in a tight embrace, sealing their new beginning. The wedding was exactly what Simone wanted: simple, elegant, intimate. A small New Jersey garden ceremony with twinkling lights, a soft breeze, and the closest people in their lives. Raphael's suit was clean and tailored. Simone's dress flowed like water over her warm skin. Eva served as the world's most excited flower girl, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy. When Simone walked toward Raphael, her heart felt full to the brim. When he vowed to love and protect her for the rest of his life, her chest tightened with gratitude. When they kissed, Eva cheered louder than anyone. It wasn't a fairy tale wedding. It was real, authentic, imperfect, achingly beautiful. The months that followed were some of the happiest of their lives. Marcus Hale had been convicted: fraud, embezzlement, corporate sabotage. The justice system handled the rest. Raphael didn't attend the hearings. He didn't need to. Closure wasn't found in watching Marcus fall. It was found in watching the life he built with Simone rise. Walton dynamics grew stronger than ever. Innovations returned. Investors regained confidence. Employees felt safe again. And at the heart of all of it was Simone, leading with grace and brilliance. Raphael embraced fatherhood wholeheartedly. He picked Eva up from school, helped with homework, learned to braid her hair poorly at first, and tucked her into bed with bedtime stories she demanded he make up on the spot. Eva thrived in school, blossoming under the warmth of a stable, joyful home. Everything felt whole. One evening in autumn, Simone noticed she had been unusually tired. She brushed it off at first. Work had been demanding, and she was adjusting to life as an executive and a wife. But the fatigue didn't fade. Mild nausea came and went. Raphael fussed over her gently, insisting she rest more, but Simone waved him off. Still, something felt different. After a week of the strange symptoms, she scheduled a doctor's appointment. The results left her sitting in stunned, breathless joy. That night, Simone waited until dinner was over. Raphael was washing dishes. Eva was humming while drawing at the table. Simone walked over, heart pounding but smiling softly. She told Raphael she had gone to the doctor. His expression shifted slightly, concern creeping in. She exhaled and told him she wasn't sick. She told him she was pregnant. For a moment there was absolute silence. Then Raphael's hand flew to his mouth as tears filled his eyes. Eva gasped, her drawing forgotten, before throwing her arms around Simone. Raphael knelt beside them, pulling Simone into a trembling, joyful embrace. A new beginning rising from a life once broken, a family expanding from love that healed wounds. Simone closed her eyes, letting herself feel the fullness of the moment, the warmth, the laughter, the future. And in that small New Jersey kitchen, wrapped in the arms of the two people she loved most, her life felt whole again, complete, and beautifully rebuilt. Thank you for being part of Whispers of Hope. Your love and support mean more than words. Together we're spreading light, one whisper at a time.